The man anxiously rushed into the hospital, holding his son, pleading for help. He said his son couldn't breathe. April quickly led them to Dr. Choi for an examination. The man explained that his son was already suffering from kidney failure. However, under the care of his ex-wife, the boy hadn't received proper treatment or checkups. So, this time, he brought the boy to the hospital himself. While Dr. Choi was inquiring about the boy's condition, a nurse suddenly called them outside. It turned out that the man was a fugitive, currently wanted nationwide. He had taken his son during a temporary release from prison to get him medical attention. April asked if they could wait until the boy's condition improved before alerting the authorities. But Dr. Choi responded that it wasn't their decision to make. Their primary responsibility was to ensure the patient's safety. Hearing this, April felt a bit uneasy. Dr. Choi resumed asking about the boy's condition, explaining that the kidney failure could lead to complications in other organs. The boy was already showing signs of arrhythmia. As they were talking, the police arrived. The man said,
"You didn't have to do this." "Sorry, legally, I had to."
Saying he had no other choice. The man, realizing he had to leave, said goodbye to his son, reassuring him that Dr. Choi would take good care of him. The police declared the charges against the man and formally arrested him. Feeling deeply conflicted, Dr. Choi stopped the police and said that the boy's condition was critical and he needed a kidney transplant. He asked if the man could stay to be tested as a potential donor. The officer said they would need to ask the state prosecutor. This suggestion was met with opposition from the newly appointed medical director. Despite the opposition, Dr. Choi proceeded with the compatibility test. The blood results indicated that the man was a match for the transplant. Dr. Choi wanted to perform the surgery immediately, as there were no other suitable donors within an 800-kilometer radius. However, the hospital leaders were against the operation. They argued that risking the hospital over the life of a fugitive wasn't worth it. If the man died during surgery, it would heavily impact the hospital's ratings. Left with no other choice, Dr. Choi reached out to another hospital to see if they were willing to take over the surgery. Meanwhile, the man was forced to leave. As the boy's condition worsened rapidly, the need for a kidney transplant became critical. Without it, the boy could die at any moment. Desperate, the man begged to have his handcuffs removed so he could say a proper goodbye to his son.
"I love you, babe."
I love you too.
Kissing the boy's forehead before walking out in despair. Suddenly, the man grabbed the officer's gun and pointed it at him, demanding that the surgery be performed immediately. Seeing the medical director's reaction, the man felt utterly hopeless. He then turned the gun on himself and said,
"Do it now!" No!
In the end, the boy's surgery was successfully performed. At that moment, they received a response from the hospital they had contacted. They were willing to perform the surgery.
Hey! Oh! Hey, we need some help over here!
A man brought his girlfriend to the emergency room. His girlfriend has abdominal pain. The woman was found to have an ectopic pregnancy, but further tests were needed to confirm it. At that moment, the woman winked at her, as if trying to convey something, but Dr. Bloom didn't understand. When the woman turned around, she noticed a strange tattoo on her. Dr. Bloom called her assistant aside and said,
"The tattoo behind her ear, I've seen it before. That woman's being sex trafficked."
Due to the hurricane outside, they could lose water or power at any time, so they decided not to call the authorities right away. Dr. Bloom then came up with an idea. She told the patient that they needed to perform a urine test. The man nervously protested, saying there were too many people around, and he didn't want to be separated from his girlfriend. Dr. Bloom reassured him that he could stay nearby and wait outside the door. Reluctantly, the man agreed. The woman, feeling uneasy, prepared for the urine test. As she closed the door, she noticed a small note behind it that read, "If you need help, sign with a red marker. If not, sign with black." She thought for a moment and then handed the urine sample to Dr. Bloom. The man continued to stare at her intently. Dr. Bloom looked at the signature on the bottle and knew what to do next. The urine test results came back. Dr. Bloom told the woman she had a confirmed ectopic pregnancy. The man pretended to comfort her. Then Dr. Bloom explained that the patient urgently needed surgery. The man, visibly displeased, responded by saying that they had their own plans, and then he started pushing the woman's wheelchair, saying they were leaving the hospital. Dr. Bloom knew there was no stopping them, so she let them go. As the man pushed the wheelchair through the darkened hallway during the power outage, a nurse caught up with them. She handed him a bottle of medication and gave him some instructions. The man impatiently took the medication and was about to turn away when, as he tried to push the wheelchair, he realized.
April? April!
The boy injured his wrist while skateboarding. Dr. Manning suggested an X-ray for the boy. However, the doctor was puzzled by the results because she saw another fracture that had already healed. She asked the mother why this injury wasn't recorded in the medical history. The boy's father said the boy had sprained his wrist before, and it healed, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Then he asked the boy,
Remember that?
Uh-huh. Bo. Bo's hand is cold.
Griffin, don't touch your brother's hand.
Dr. Manning noted that the boy's hand was indeed very cold and suggested surgery as soon as possible. After leaving the room, Dr. Manning expressed her doubts. The boy's hand injury didn't seem like it was caused by a fall. There were no bruises, only swelling, which indicated the injury might have occurred 24 hours ago. Earlier, she also noticed that the boy's mother had a bandaged hand. This led her to suspect that the boy's father might be abusing his family. The medical director said they had to confirm this before contacting DCFS. So Dr. Manning consulted a psychiatrist for help. When he mentioned treating the boy's mother's hand injury, the boy's father realized their intention. He said if they suspected him of abusing his family, they could call the police or involve family services if they didn't believe him. Later, the medical director contacted DCFS. At that moment, patients from a car accident arrived at the hospital. The boy's older brother noticed the blood on the floor and seemed intrigued by it. He picked up a blood-stained button and even smelled it. Dr. Charles approached the boy and asked why he picked it up. The boy replied that he wanted to return it to the patient. Dr. Charles asked if he wasn't afraid. The boy said he wasn't, and that he wanted to be a doctor when he grew up. Dr. Charles then asked why he wanted to be a doctor. The boy gave an unexpected answer.
The knives.
What?
Seeing Dr. Charles's shocked expression, the boy quickly changed his answer, saying it was to help people. Dr. Charles pondered the boy's behavior, suspecting that the older brother might actually be the abuser in the family. He deduced that the parents were hiding the truth, and the boy's older brother likely had antisocial personality disorder. They spoke privately with the boy's parents, but the parents refused their request for a full evaluation of the older brother. They feared that if the evaluation confirmed their son had a psychopathic personality, DCFS would take him away. During the conversation, the older brother quietly entered his younger brother's hospital room, startling everyone. When the doctors and parents arrived, the boy wasn't physically harmed, but his blood pressure had spiked, and his heart rate was elevated. The father quickly took the older brother away. Gradually, the boy's blood pressure and heart rate returned to normal. Dr. Charles explained that this was a natural fear response, sensing danger. In the end, the mother couldn't accept the suggestion of having her older son taken away. She believed that once he grew up, things would naturally get better. She asked Dr. Manning,
What would you do? Would you send him away?